Hello, you multi-Munro midges, and thank you to Stephen Hallberg for the malt mention introducing Ralphie Review 979. So welcome all you whisky fans and Scotch whisky curious. I'm Ralphie. I supply whisky reviews, and I tend to avoid superficial, short, simplistic whisky reviews, because when you look at the amount of money you're paying in the hopes of buying a good whisky, just brief generalised descriptors are really not that helpful. And I'm basically using my experience in drinking whisky. Well, I am still drinking whisky for let me see now about 1985, 85, 95, 95, 2005, 200, we're coming up 40 years, yeah. In a couple of years it'll be 40 years, which is a good enough spread of time to kind of find your way around the different versions, permutations and flavour profiles of this fantastic, phenomenal array of flavours that you get in one single genre of a whisky, and that's in Scotch whisky. The one reason that I focus in Scotch whisky is because it's what I know the most about. I don't buy much in the way of bourbon, because the best bourbon doesn't really leave the United States. It stays where the biggest demand is. And I don't really review that much in the way of rum, because although I enjoy a rum now and again, the main focus of this channel really is specifically in Scotch whisky. And one of those that crops up now and again is Laphroaig 10-year-old cask strength. Let me tell you why. Now that we're getting into the nitty gritty of this review. Lovely cork, by the way. See, composite cork. This is where the cork is made of little shreds of rubber compressed together. You will find it's a little bit tougher, a little bit stronger, and makes a much greater squeak when it's coming out the bottle, which is all part of the theatre that we enjoy. I also enjoy the fact that this is batch number 15. And the last time I reviewed this several years ago was batch number 12. So we're moving on a little bit with the batch numbers. This was bottled in December 2021. There's plenty of it out there. It's widely available. It's bottled at 56.5%. And what you're looking at is one of the most unchanged classic single malt brandings that is out there. And it works because it's so simple. It's not pandering to fashion. It's not incorporating modern colours like olive green, which is wonderfully fashionable in London at the moment, so I hear. But it sticks to bottle green, because it's a green bottle, but that is traditional bottle green. And it has primarily a white label. Gives you some reasonable information in the back without getting too ridiculous. They do say, and I'll mention this because it makes a lot of sense, we recommend you add a small amount of water to your whisky to fully appreciate the taste characteristics. I'll try that again. Characteristics, there we are. Much easier when I'm not reading it. Of original cask strength Laphroaig. Whisky at cask strength may overpower the palate, but adding water will release the rich aromas of peat smoke and some sweetness and strong hints of the sea. There we go. That's great advice, that. But you'll still find people say, oh, you never add water to whisky because it's sacrilege, and you throw away the cork and you've not had a good night till you finish the bottle. What a lot of claptrap. Do not listen to these people. They do not know what they are talking about. And they're usually daft. Okay? So cheers, your good health. Nose. for something at 56.5% alcohol, it's as peated, and this is, you'll hear the word peat quite a lot here, as peated as Laphroaig 10-year-old cask strength. It's remarkably reserved. In fact, it simply doesn't prepare you in any way for the first taste. Here we go. Simply one of the most phenolically powerful, recognisable single malt flavours in the entire Scotch whisky single malt spectrum. People who love peat love this. People who do not like peat should not buy this. I'm going to add some water. I'm following the advice in the carton, on the label, sorry, on the back of the label. I'm also looking for the bit that says unchill filtered and natural colour. But I'm out of luck. Regretfully, in my opinion, there's been filtering going on here. 1, 2 teaspoonfuls of water. That's 10 millilitres. Quite a lot of water. But in fairness, this is quite a lot of whisky. I last reviewed this in Ralphie Review 840, which was in August 2020, so about 2.5 years ago, well, over that now. I scored this 90 out of 100, and that was for batch number 12, which was bottled at 60% alcohol. So we're a bit different batch. We're a few years later. The whiskey's changed slightly, and I've changed slightly. And if you were in my position, your senses would change slightly as well. And I have to say that there comes a point where the novelty of the peat reek starts to round off. It never disappears. We always enjoy it, but on specific occasions, and in the knowledge that once we've had a glass of Laphroaig, there's no point in pouring a glass of anything else but rye whiskey, because that's the only thing that doesn't get completely swamped by the intense peatiness of Laphroaig. You know, I was chatting to a friend over in Glasgow who happened to be mentioning that when he opened his batch strength 10-year-old Laphroaig, he was sipping the glass and kind of enjoying it but not enjoying it, which is part of the enjoyment. And his 12-year-old son asked his daddy, "Daddy, what's all the fuss about? Why are you making all these funny faces?" And he said to his son, "Listen, this is Laphroaig. This is the most peatiest whiskey on the planet. So someday when you're growing up, you can have a wee taste, but you've got to grow up first." So of course, as soon as he left the room, glass unfinished on the table, to go and answer the phone in the hallway, he came back again, and his 12-year-old son has the glass in both hands, and his face is completely screwed up in a total contortion. To which Daddy says, "Well, son, what do you think of Laphroaig 10-year-old? And the boy, because kids are always honest and truthful, he says, "Daddy, that tastes of earthquake." I know in previous reviews I've commented on volcanic, brine, intense brine, saltiness, iodine, very prominent in Laphroaig. But I don't think I've ever used the reference liquid earthquake. So thank you, Timmy, for giving me that prompt. I know Dad will make sure you're watching, so you know you're getting your credit. So cheers. We've added some water. How's it getting on? It's intense, but it's not over the top. You know it's powerful, but there's a rich barley sugar toffee note happening in conjunction with that raw peatiness. And this is where Laphroaig stands out from the other heavily peated whiskies like Ardbeg and Lagavulin. right? And you'd remember it. And they are heavily peated, but a certain controlled directional way, it's the Laphroaig directional way. But Laphroaig is just absolutely elemental in its delivery. I'm going to mention this in passing. You will more than likely see the Laphroaig non-age statement select on sale where you are. And it is the cheapest version of Laphroaig. My advice is don't buy it, because if you do, you will be disappointed and not want to buy Laphroaig again. Whereas if you buy the 10-year-old, if you're a peat fan, because you're getting a good quality experience, you will want to buy Laphroaig again. But unfortunately, Laphroaig Select is ideal for mixing in a tumbler with ice and ginger beer. Or orange juice. The concentrated stuff. You know what I mean. Just keeping you right. There's a kind of love-hate relationship with this. I enjoy it in winter time when I've probably drunk half a bottle of red wine and I'm not quite ready to go to bed and I'm needing something that's just going to give me a nightcap and I'm not really tasting the alcohol so much, but I've got a lot of red wine residual in my mouth. And then you taste the Laphroaig with the red wine still there, and it makes it very palatable. It makes it quite eccentric and interesting. But I don't drink much of Laphroaig. It's very much an acquired taste, and it's very much something that you don't want to get too used to, because it will numb your palate against more delicate whiskies, such as the Lowland or some certain Speyside whiskies. And I do notice that people who are regular peated whisky fans tend to be dismissive and intolerant of non-peated whiskies for a simple reason, maltmates: they've institutionalised their palates. It's what's happened. Cheers. A lot more sweetness coming out now. Much more manageable in the palate. Wonderfully savoury. Minty. Super minty malt. Barley sugar, ginger, dried ginger. There's a little bit of clove and almond kernels going on in there. Slight peach stone, so we're getting the kind of bitterness of cyanide, to be honest, because there's minuscule quantities of cyanide in apple pips and peach stones and such like, so be aware of that. But this, by the way, there's no cyanide in this, just to reassure you. So that you've got that intense almondy note, almost sort of Italian liqueur, you know, the proper Italian liqueur type almond intensity. And there is strong sultana, so there's a ripe fruit, slight appley note in the development, but everything is more or less overwhelmed by iodine, phenols and peat smoke, elemental peat smoke, the sort of savouriness of it. So that is Laphroaig 10-year-old cask strength, and this is the 20th of Laphroaig I've reviewed in my channel. So it's a regular guest because I know that for those of you watching, you really want to know, what does an experienced old jobbing hack think of this super peatiness? And my opinion is it's right at the end of the scale between the lightest single malt to the heaviest single malt. And the only way you get this more complex is when you buy independent bottlers with the name of Williamson on it from the likes of Berry Brothers or some other independent bottlers, and you get some fascinating, real kind of awkward, gutsy versions of this. So can you imagine this with even more diverse character? That's what you get with these Williamson bottles, which tend to sell out quite quickly because people now equate the name with Laphroaig. So let's give this a malt mark. As you know, I'm moving away from 90s out of 100 because these marks are simply getting exploited. So I'm giving this a very respectable. No, that's a bit mean. That's a bit mean. I'm going to go up a mark. I'm going to go up a mark because it's a classic, really. But having said that, they're chill filtering it. They're removing mouthfeel. They're not delivering it as best it could be. Why are they not chill filtering this? Why are they chill filtering this? I've added teaspoons of water. It's as clear as a Diageo product. This is wrong, so I'm going to take this mark right back off again and go back to my original mark. This should not be getting chill filtered. That's nonsense. In this day and age, I would call that professional negligence. That's 84 out of 100, and that, because I've got a card, just to remind you, is a malt mark. It's not an integrity delivered whisky. I have noticed in cold days that it does go a little bit slightly cloudy, slightly, but nowhere near the way it should do, nowhere near. So if you happen to email the distillery and they get back to you and say, oh no, our whisky's so pure, made from the gushing, rushing streams, filtered through the heather, blah, 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 blah. I know I sound cynical, but there's a reason to be, because honestly, someone needs to update the script at distilleries. They seriously need to do so. It's so dated now. It's so tired. There's a simple solution. Just get the people who actually make the stuff to give the tours, to break up their day a little bit. Because see, when you get an honest conversation with someone that actually knows their trade, that's where you really learn stuff and get the most positive of positive impressions. But this, it shouldn't be filtered except for basic barrier filtering. But it is, and it loses something, and it shouldn't lose it. And it's just habits, it's just bad habits in the industry. And yet, they just want to keep charging us more because of inflation, because of energy costs, which, by the way, are coming right down now, which I'm sure you're aware of. But the prices keep going up, which I'm sure you're aware of. But there we are. Pop back again for Ralphie Review 979. I have no idea what I'm going to be talking about, but I suspect it will be to do with the relationship of price and quality of whisky. And I'm just going to have a kind of a free run with it, and hopefully you're going to pick up something out of it, because one of the most important basic mission statements for anybody who's becoming a fan of whisky is, particularly when you're looking at the price, you're going to say to yourself, where can I go to information to avoid mistakes? How can I narrow down the window of disappointment of buying a whisky and just not enjoying it? And I really want to cover that without you overly relying on the internet, on other people's opinions, because the opinions you get, whether be it from experts or from just enthusiastic amateurs hiding away in the corner like myself, we're only reviewing the bottle we've bought at the time we've bought it, with the palate we've developed over the period of time we've developed it. So it's a generalisation from whichever direction you get advice. It's only a generalisation. But what we want to really get past is, okay, quality may vary between palates, between bottlings, but where's the real quality? So I'm going to be covering that. See you soon. Bye-bye. Clivey Clicker. Time to go.